Interactive virtual event, One Day in the Life in Turkey. Thank you all for joining us today, and we're very excited to be hearing from students on the National Security Language Initiative for Youth, or NSLI program in Turkey, and to be connecting them with all of you here in the U.S. and around the world today. The NSLI program, sponsored by the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, provides merit-based scholarships for eligible high school students and recent high school graduates to learn less commonly taught languages in summer and academic year overseas programs. Immersion program, sorry. Through NSLI Interactive, students on the program connect with youth in the U.S. to exchange their language learning and cross-cultural experiences through multimedia, stories on the online site, and virtual events like today's. Our NSLI student speakers will present about various topics on the relation to the theme of One Day in the Life in Turkey, including what it's like to learn the Turkish language abroad, attend school, live with a Turkish host family, eat the cuisine, get from place to place, and some of the activities and hobbies that they've taken part in there. These students are on the NSLI academic program in Izmir, Turkey, implemented by AFS. And the topics were chosen to give students, educators, and others in the U.S. an inside view into the unique experiences of NSLI students in Turkey through their multimedia, which will include photos and videos, and to also share their valuable insights into the language and culture. And I'd like to hand it over to my colleague Jen now, who will give everyone a brief overview of what will be happening during this virtual event.
Merhaba, everyone. It's great to see you. We'd like to give everyone just a brief overview. So during the presentation, the Nestle students will take turns sharing about their select topics. And you'll see the chat box on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen where you can ask questions. And the Nestle students that are present will be responding to your questions. We encourage dialogue in the chat box, so please don't be afraid to ask questions or make comments as we go along. And at the end of the student multimedia presentations, we'll open up the discussion for a question and answer period where we'll either use the chat box or the microphones for the participants to do the question and answer. But first, before we get to the presentations, we want to hear a little bit more about you and where you're joining us from. So you'll see here on your screen at the bottom left-hand corner, there is a poll. And please just let us know if you're a student, a teacher, an alumni of the Nestle program, where you're joining us from. And you'll also see a map at the top of your screen. What we're going to do is kind of put dots on this map for where you are in the world and joining us. You'll see that Turkey is yellow here. So our students will be clicking there. And then I know there's a lot of people from the United States. So to make, to indicate where you are in the world, you can click on the marker, which is the second button down on your screen. Let me just make sure everybody has the drawing enabled. Just a moment. And you can put a dot on your location. Okay, you should all have the drawing feature enabled now. And again, look at that second button down and mark where you are. So I'm joining from New York. So I put a dot there. You can also write in the chat box where you're joining us from. So type in the chat box as well if you're from the US or from Turkey. Wow, great. So I'm seeing some people from all over Boston, Michigan, Texas, Connecticut, um, Virginia, and it looks like we have quite a few students joining this webinar recording. And teachers as well. So great. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll leave this up just for another moment so you can type in the chat box where you're joining from. Okay, and just as we're getting ready to start the session, I just wanted to share that we will be recording the session and then posting it on the NSLI Interactive website for those who are unable to join us this morning or this evening in Turkey. So you can look for the recording after the session.
Great, thank you so much, Jen. And now I'd like to introduce the 4 NSLI students who are presenting today, and they are Noah, Natasha, Reagan, and Harry. So without much further ado, I'd like to hand it over to our first NSLI student speaker, Natasha, who will be speaking about her experiences learning Turkish language in Turkey. So whenever you're ready, Natasha, you can go on ahead.
All right, can everybody hear me? All right, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about the language learning process, starting off by talking about Turkish as a language as a whole, and then finally just walking you through what our specific process has been in learning the language. And so I'm going to be moving a little bit quickly, so if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the web chat box. So Turkish as a language is really interesting because more so than other languages, it's a constructed language, meaning that the switch to the Latin alphabet and certain aspects of it only came about as late as 1928. That Latin alphabet has actually been really helpful for us as NSLI students, especially since a couple of us have tried studying languages like Chinese or other languages without the Latin alphabet earlier, and having that alphabet there it helps us a lot with independently studying and keeping up motivation to learn the language. Turkish is also interesting because it's an agglutinative language, meaning that you're adding suffixes to stems of words to create different meanings. One of the most famous examples of this you'll see on your screen here is Çekoslovakyalılaştıramadıklarımızdan mısınız, which means, are you one of those people whom we could not make to be Czechoslovakian? Now this is kind of an extreme example, but you do see more so here in Turkey than you would ever see in the U.S. is signs on public transportation or even in advertisements that use incredibly long words, but everybody is effortlessly able to understand. So that's one of the major differences between Turkish and English from my perspective. But onto our process with the language personally. We started before we came to Turkey. 3 people on the program had done the NSLI summer program beforehand, and so they had a little bit of background in the language, but for the rest of us, we were starting off with a fresh slate. We were supposed to do Rosetta Stone Turkish lessons before we came in the summer, but Rosetta Stone doesn't really lend itself to a language like Turkish, which is so incredibly focused on the grammar. So right when we came to Turkey, we spent a little over a week in Selim Pasha, a suburb of Istanbul, where we did intensive language training for about 5 hours a day. And that was really just to get us up to speed before we got to Izmir and met our host families and started going to school. And before I got to Selim Pasha and started taking these classes, I didn't even know how much there was that I didn't know. It really helped us because, like I said before, Turkish is a language that is incredibly based in grammar, and we're still developing and learning the grammar now, but having that basis in Selim Pasha really helped us before we moved on and met our host family. So here in Izmir, there are 2 different aspects to learning the language, and the first of those is our regular Tomer language courses. So we're required to have 10 hours of language courses per week, and we take them with Tomer, a language institute associated with Ankara University. And at Tomer, we go through 4 main aspects: reading, writing, speaking, and listening, but we do this in a lot of different ways. Our primary goal is to learn the grammar behind the Turkish language, and this is where we get most of our grammar instruction from. But a typical day at Tomer will see us filling out parts of the workbooks or developing dialogues with the other students and our teachers, as well as writing our own short stories and going through grammar lectures. But what's interesting about the NSLI program is that you can take classes like Tomer anywhere, but the part outside of Tomer, our daily life, is what's really helped us to learn the language more so. So how does that work? So basically what happens is on the NSLI program, the reason you develop the language so much more quickly than you would in just a classroom setting is that it's really based on full immersion. So as soon as we got to Izmir, When we talk with our families, when we talk with our friends at school, when you go out in public, everything is in Turkish right away, and it's really kind of a sink or swim situation. But having the opportunity to be here in Turkey means that we've been able to immerse ourselves in with Turkish books, listening to Turkish podcasts, reading through different Turkish textbooks, TV shows, movies, music. There's so much Turkish saturated in the culture here, as I'm sure you can imagine, and just having that opportunity to constantly immerse yourself in the language has been incredibly helpful for us. We also recently made a New Year's resolution as a group to only speak Turkish with each other and to try as hard as we can to only revert to English in emergency situations. And even though it's only been a couple of weeks since the new year, I feel like that resolution as a whole really has helped us to develop. And as we continue on in the next couple of months, I'm sure that the immersion aspect will continue to be even more beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natasha, for your very insightful look into the Turkish language and for sharing the ways you've been expanding your knowledge of it as a NSLI student. Next up, we'll be hearing from Reagan and Noah, who will be discussing what it's been like to attend school in Turkey.
Hey everyone, I'm Reagan and I'm going to be talking a bit on school life. We are all currently in Turkish high schools here in Izmir. All 8 of us have been put in separate high schools in Izmir. And on the right you can see a picture of my high school, Balçova Anadolu Lisesi. So although all 8 of us on this particular year have graduated and are on a gap year, we are put in 11th grade, and this is just based on the way the school system works. The big test is a huge test that 12th graders will take at the end of the year. And what you get on this test determines what university you can get into. So as a result, especially in 12th grade, students will spend a lot of their extra time studying, and come spring semester, which actually starts in 2 weeks, our first semester just ended yesterday, they will actually not be attending school as often because they will spend a lot of their free time studying for this big test. And so because of this, we are all put in 11th grade. Turkish high school is a lot different than American high school, and so one thing that's a huge difference is the class tracks. So in America, you can choose your classes. You can choose IB, AP, honors, regular. However, in Turkey, what you do is starting in 10th grade, you'll choose a class track, and depending on what track you choose, depends on your classes. So I'm currently on the Turkish and mathematics track, and other tracks they have are a language track, a Turkish and, a science and math track, and then a social track. So I'm not sure about the other schools. My school let me choose, but not really knowing anything about these tracks, I was just kind of randomly placed into it. But it's good because now I'm getting to learn a bit about Turkish literature, which is definitely a challenge. As for classes, so based on your class track, you're put into a classroom with other people that are on the same track, and then you stay in that classroom for the whole day, and the teachers come to you instead. And so I have 15 classes here in Turkey, which is a lot more than I had in America. I only had 7. And of course, these classes are based on your track. So mine are like Turkish literature, Turkish, math, geometry, history, Turkish history, sociology, philosophy, religion, PE. You take all 4 years. You can choose between art and music and a few more. Dersane is something else I want to talk about that's very big here in Turkey. So in preparation for the big tests, a lot of students will spend their weekends and time after school going to Dersane, and this is where they prepare for the big test. And so because of Dersane, a lot of high schools don't have a lot of homework either, because students spend so much time at their extra course after school and on weekends that they don't really have time to do homework, but they're still studying. So I found that especially on weekends, a lot of my Turkish friends will spend a lot of their time over here at Dersane. And it's interesting because my Turkish teacher at Tomer, which Natasha mentioned earlier, just told us that they're trying to change Dersane and like change the way the school system works starting in 2015. So Dersane might not be around in a few years, and they might switch to tutors or something instead. But as for now, it's very popular, and a majority of my class goes. And I think partially because of Dersane, sports are not big. So coming from a big Southern American high school, like every Friday night was a football game, then you had basketball games and volleyball games, and everyone went to these games, and it was a huge thing. However, in Turkey, I have not heard of one sports event at my school, and apparently they have some teams. However, I don't really know anything about them. so they're not very popular. And a lot of schools don't have gyms anyway, so it's hard to practice. And in America, another difference is you say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning, whereas in Turkey, you gather and sing the national anthem. It varies on school, but most schools are Monday morning and then Friday afternoon. And then a few Turkish words is friend is arkadaş, teacher is öğretmen, or in school, everyone refers to their teacher as hocam. Your classroom is your sınıf. Breaks are teneffüs, and you'll have breaks after every class. Your class is called your ders. The national anthem is the İstiklal Marşı. And the classroom etiquette, because you're already in the classroom when the teacher comes in, everyone always stands, and then the teacher will say good morning, and you say sağ ol, which means thank you, and then you'll sit when the teacher allows you, and then the class will begin. Okay, Noah?
All right, sweet. I was just going to mention a few more things. There is some sports facilities. We have a basketball court and a soccer field at our school, and there's a lot of natural ability with, everyone living in the European area in soccer. There's also 10-minute breaks every single hour in most things in Turkey. We have them for our language classes. We have them in our school classes, a 10-minute break every 15 minutes. And there's also them if you go to the movies. If you go to the cinema in Turkey, you're going to have a 10-minute break in the middle of it. The other thing is because for men there's a mandatory military service in Turkey, you have, as part of the PE course, you also get some marching practice and learning the basic military commands you're going to need before you go into the army. All right.
Great. Thank you so much, Reagan and Noah. That was a really fascinating look at the school culture there in Turkey and some of the differences between high school there and here in the U.S. Thank you again. And now we'll be turning it over to Harry and Reagan, who will be talking about the host family experience.
All right, so host family, we're all living with host families here. Your family is called your aile, and this is, has been a really great way for us to fully immerse ourselves in the culture, because when you come home at night and on weekends, you're again surrounded by Turkish. There's really no escaping it. You learn so much about the food, the culture, and just their way of life. And so it has been really great to live with the Turkish host family and totally immerse myself here. And on the right, you can see that's a picture of me and my host family when I first arrived on my very first day in Izmir.
I just wanted to talk about a few of the words we use to refer to our host families. Family is aile, sibling is kardeş, and to say brother or sister, you just add the word boy or girl to kardeş, so erkek kardeş or kız kardeş. Older sister is abla, but abla is also a word we use to politely refer to other women that you might not know. Anne is mother, baba is father. Teyze and amca are super common words in Turkish. They mean aunt and uncle, but you also use them to refer to people you don't know who you might meet on the street or in a store. And they're a polite way to refer to someone that you don't know rather than something like Mr. or Mrs., which we use in English. Older brother is abi, and you can add Jim or Jik to the end of the names of your family members to show affection. So anneciğim, babacığım, teyzeciğim, amcacığım, things like that.
Okay, and then on to some differences. Of course, we have different lifestyles, so I just noted some of the biggest differences. One thing is slippers. In Turkey, you do not wear your shoes in the house. You'll take them off, and you always wear slippers. And so this is something I wasn't used to. I was used to not wearing shoes in my house. However, I always seemed to forget my slippers the first few weeks and was constantly reminded. And the reasoning behind it is that Turkish people, a lot of them think that if your feet get cold, then it will make your body cold, and if your body gets cold, you will get sick. So as a result, they wear slippers. Another thing is drying your hair. That relates to getting sick. Going out with wet hair is very uncommon here in Turkey. I've gone to school a few times with wet hair, and immediately my friends have come up to me and been like, why didn't you dry your hair this morning? You're going to get sick. And so I didn't blow dry my hair in America. However, it's something I've definitely gotten accustomed to here. I wrote down host moms because I was actually on the summer program in 2013 in a different city, and both of my host families this year and last summer have been great, and I've been really close with my host moms, and they've definitely taught me a lot. Both of them have loved to cook, which has been awesome because it's some great food, and I've learned a lot about the food that way. Laundry. In Turkey, they do not have drying machines, and so you'll see, especially in the spring and warmer weather, like everywhere you go on everyone's balcony, everyone's laundry will be hung up to dry. And television I put down because a lot of families here in Turkey, television is a form of bonding, especially in the evenings. They'll watch like Turkish soap operas or something, and everyone will gather around the TV, and it's kind of like a nightly event or something. For me personally, we always watch movies with my little sister on the weekends and stuff. And it's good because a lot of these movies I've watched in America with my little sister who's the same age, so it's really fun to like listen to them in Turkish, and having memorized so much of them, it's fun to hear them in Turkish and be able to understand them.
In Turkey, there are some major holidays that are part of everyone's life. The first one that we experienced was Kurban Bayramı, which is known in other Muslim countries as Eid al-Adha. It's the sacrifice festival, and we celebrated that in October. We celebrated the Cumhuriyet Bayramı, which is a celebration of Turkey's independence. And then we experienced the anniversary of the death of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, which took place in November. And that was a really interesting experience because everyone stops their car on the street in order to pay respect. And the national anthem is played, and it was really different from things we experience in America. In Turkey, gender roles in a lot of places are kind of more traditional than they are in the U.S., in parts of the U.S. and some other places. Many families have the expectation that women will do the housework and men will be working outside of the house. That's of course not true in every house. Every family is different, but those are both important things in some families. A lot of Turkish families are much closer than American families. Just in general, they spend a lot of time together. I know with my family, we're always together at home when we're not doing other things at school or at work. We eat dinner together every night as a family. We eat breakfast together on the weekends. And it's really great. It makes you really feel like you're part of the family. Turkey is a predominantly Muslim country. A large percentage of the population is Muslim, and there are some other religious minorities here. But all of our host families are Muslim. My host family is a little bit more conservative Muslim than most of the other families in Izmir. Izmir is generally a very liberal city. But my host parents will pray every morning, and my sister prays about once or twice a week. So my experience has been different from many of the other students in Izmir because most of their host families are not quite as religious as mine, but it's been a really cool cultural experience for me, and I've really enjoyed learning about the religion.
Thank you so much, Harry and Reagan, for bringing us into your lives with your host families and your interesting reflections on some of the customs of families there. So now I'd like to turn it back over to Natasha, who will fill us in on the many scrumptious culinary delights in Turkey and the cultural practices that surround them.
All right. Hi, this is Natasha again. All right, I'm going to be talking a little bit about food, which has actually been one of my favorite parts of Turkish culture here. Food is incredibly important in Turkish culture, and in fact, the first week or so when I got here, the first thing that people would ask me was, how much Turkish food have you had in America? What kinds of Turkish food have you tried since you've gotten here? And they all seemed really surprised when I told them that most of their traditional foods they have here I had never eaten in my life. So I'm just going to go through a couple of those and then talk about the role that food plays in Turkish culture. So one of the most famous traditional foods here is kokoreç, which is lamb or goat intestines roasted, and in Izmir it's typically made in a kind of white bread sandwich. And I actually tasted this at 2 a.m. the first time I tried it because my family told me that the late nights heighten the cultural experience. The next one is çiğ köfte, which is raw. It can be made with raw meat or it can be made vegetarian. It's typically made vegetarian here in Izmir, and it's wrapped in a lettuce leaf, and that's incredibly popular. At my school, it's considered a treat to order in çiğ köfte and have the whole class share it. Doner kebab is the one thing that I'm sure many people are familiar with, no matter where you're from in the world. But one thing particular to Izmir is that it's really popular to have this in sort of a durum or a wrap situation, and a couple people in our program have fallen in love with this kind of thing and eat it every day. Iskender is also one of the most popular traditional foods here. It's a kind of doner kebab, and it's prepared from thinly cut grilled lamb with hot tomato sauce on top, and it's prepared over pieces of pita bread, and it's slathered with melted sheep butter and yogurt, and it's also very popular here in Turkey. Food also plays a really big role in terms of holidays. As Harry mentioned earlier, when we first got to Turkey, we got to celebrate Kurban Bayram with our families, which is honoring the sacrifice of Abraham. And so what traditional Muslim families will do during this time is to sacrifice their best domestic animals, which is usually a cow. My family did a sheep, and it's a symbol of Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his only son. What's interesting about this is that after you sacrifice the animal, you divide it up into 3 parts, and the family keeps one of the parts for themselves. 1/3 is given to relatives or friends or neighbors, and another 1/3 is given to the poor and needy. So this is a photograph of my host grandfather, my mother's father, preparing it for us on Kurban Bayram. And so when you walk down the street during Kurban Bayram, it's incredibly common to be able to smell this coming from every house. What you can't see in the photo is the other bags of raw meat that are just right outside of it. So one of our favorite parts coming to Turkey in terms of food has been the Turkish breakfasts. A lot of people are really surprised when I tell them that in America it's common and normal actually for people to just have a bowl of cereal or something small and go about their day without having a big drawn out breakfast. Breakfast is incredibly important in Turkish culture, and so we'll have a breakfast like this, which I highly recommend making yourself at home, maybe around once a week. And then rather than focusing solely on the food, we'll draw breakfast out for a while and have conversation while we eat it. So if you do have the opportunity to come to Turkey or make this breakfast yourself at home, I definitely recommend it. It's got about 20 different parts can be added into it, and it's been delicious. I try to have it at least once a week here in Turkey. There are also a couple really traditional drinks that are had in Turkey. The first one of these is ayran, which is definitely imbibed in the Turkish culture here. Turks drink it all the time. It's a mixture of yogurt, water, and salt mixed together, a savory drink that's had, some Turks have it with every meal. Personally, I don't like it, but a lot of people on our trip have gotten used to it and started to enjoy it because I've been told many times that you can't become a Turk until you love ayran. The second one is chai or tea. Not a lot of people know this, but Turkey is actually the world's largest consumer of tea in terms of pounds per person per year. And we've definitely gotten to experience that here in Turkey. I think that everybody in our group drinks tea pretty much on a daily basis. Personally, I drink about 3 or 4 cups a day. And it's definitely an important part of the culture. And like I said earlier with breakfast, tea is more than just the taste of the drink itself, but also about the experience of having tea and talking with other people while you're having it. And the last important drink here is the Türk kahvesi or Turkish coffee, which is not actually referring to a specific type of coffee beans, but rather the method of preparing the coffee itself. Roasted and then finely ground coffee beans, they're boiled in a pot, and it's usually boiled with sugar, although it can be done plain, and they're served in a cup, and the grounds are allowed to settle in the bottom of the cup. And so another important part of Turk kahvesi is that well, you can flip it over and get your fortune told, and I know a couple of students have been able to do that with their family members, and it's considered very lucky to do so. There are also a couple of local yemekleri or local foods that can be found around Izmir that we've gotten the chance to experience. Turkey is the world's 3rd largest producer of apples, but also found in Izmir and very common are hazelnuts, figs, and oranges. We also got the opportunity to go to an olive farm and to help them out with picking some of the olives. You can see here a photo of Reagan and Noah enjoying the olives that they've picked. And olives and olive oil are very, very common in Turkey and found in most of the foods here. My family has an olive farm, and so our refrigerator is always full of freshly picked olives. All right, so that's just an introduction on Turkish food. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them.
Thank you, Natasha, for sharing with us all of the very delicious foods you've been able to enjoy there and for sharing some of the really intriguing traditions around them. So now we'll be hearing from Harry, who will be discussing transportation in Izmir.
You want to show my video and then I'll talk about it right after? Will that work?
Sure, I could show your video now, and so I'll just take a moment to get that up there.
Izmir has hundreds of bus routes that go all over the city. This is a really big city with 3.5 million lives. Big circle, there's a statue in the middle with nice trees. There are a few consulates in this area. It's also a great spot to get stuck in traffic. There we go. People behind me are talking about me. They probably assume I don't know Turkish because I'm speaking English. Jokes on them. And I'm off the bus, I'm free, there's fresh air, it's a beautiful day. Next week I'll be continuing on Talakpaşa, which is where Somed is. Taxis are pretty cheap here, so I don't rely on them much, but they are an option to get around when you need to. And never too expensive. Okay, I made it across the street, I'm gonna lie. I'm gonna head towards Somed, right down. I am on the Izban heading home with Brenna. We just got out of Somed. I will only take it one stop to Hilal, and then from there I'll take the metro 4 or 5 stops back to Uchil. And walk home.
I take it all the way almost to the airport, to the Esplash stop. So I have quite a bit longer to go, probably 10 more stops.
Gelecek istasyon Hilal. Lütfen dikkat. Hilal istasyonu İzmir metroyu kullanacak yolcularımız için aktarma istasyonudur.
Hilal Station, İzmir metro kullanacak yolcularımız için aktarma istasyonudur. Hilal is one of the 2 transfer stations between Izban and the metro. When you scan your temp card, the card used for all public transport in Izmir, you can transfer as many times as you need within a window of 90 minutes. So you can start on the Izban, go to the metro, take a bus and a ferry, all within the same 90-minute period. Okay, we just left. The metro is super crowded. As you can see, it's not much room to move. Uchil means 3 roads. At Uchil, there's another circle kind of like in downtown Izmir. And there are 3 different roads. One of them leads south toward Ferencinaltı toward Üsküdar. One of them leads out toward the suburbs of Gaziemir, and the other leads into the city toward Çankaya and Alsancak. We're just about there. I'll be getting off the train in any second.
Can you all hear me? I hope you liked the video. It was kind of able to give you an idea of what my daily transport is like. Sorry, I just had to open the door. So let me just show you through my slideshow. Izmir has public buses, the metro, the Izban, which is a commuter train line, and ferries that people use to get around. Every day I use the bus, the Izban, and the metro. So you see kind of the logos here. This is a map of all the public transport in Izmir. I live right here at Üç. I live by the Üç station. Our Tömez classes, our Turkish classes, are in downtown in Alsancak. And this is how far the Izban goes north and south of the city. The metro goes from here to here out to Bornova, which is where some universities are, and Fırat'ın Altay is where my grandma lived. The ferries cross around the harbor from Bostanlı and Karşıyaka in the northern part of the city, and down to Üç, which is where Fırat'ın Altay metro stop is. I walk to school every morning. It's just a short 5-10 minute walk from my house to my school. It's right downhill. And then I take the bus along water from my school to Tömez. And it's a really pretty bus ride. I get to see the sea and lots of beautiful buildings and historic places in Izmir. You saw a little bit of my ride when I drove through the Cumhuriyet Meydanı, which is kind of a main part of Izmir. And when I go home every night, I take the Izban one stop from Alsancak to Hilal or Halkapınar, and then I take the metro 4 or 5 stops to Üç. It's a really nice ride. It's really crowded sometimes because this is a huge city, and Alsancak is kind of the main part of the city where a lot of people work there, and we all take various methods of public transportation home. I'm lucky to live the closest out of everyone to Tömez. My commute's only about 30 minutes each way, but some people commute over an hour home and to school every day.
Great. Thank you so much, Harry, for cluing us in on the best ways to get around in Izmir and taking us along on your daily commute there. Last but certainly not least, we'll be hearing from Noah and Reagan, who will be sharing with you some hobbies and activities that they've taken part in as NSLI students in Izmir.
All right, hey again. I'm going to start talking about hobbies and activities. Mainly the 3 different activities are going to be with your host family, your friends, or your program. So here's a picture of some volunteer activities we did. One of them was olive picking, and another one was volunteering at the Children's Cancer Hospital. We went there for 4 weeks leading up to this day, and then the pictures are from the New Year's party we had with them. As for hobbies, we have Brenna here in the middle, who has found a piano studio where she practices piano each week. Katie on the bottom right over here plays tennis every week. A lot of us have joined the gym, and me and Katie have actually attended an ultimate frisbee club a few times a week. Here are some activities with my family and friends. My 2 favorites would have to be going to a Galatasaray soccer match with my Turkish friends, and that's the top left picture, and then going to a traditional Turkish wedding in Izmir with my host family one weekend. That was a really cool experience. And since I was also on the summer program in 2013 in Bursa, I thought I should include a few things from then. During that time, I got to travel to Çanakkale, and if you look at the top right, that's actually a picture of the ancient city of Troy. So if you've ever seen that movie, that was really cool to go to. It was a little bit different than the movie, a little bit smaller, but they did have the Trojan horse, and so that was really fun. And then on the top left is a picture of whirling dervishes, and this is a religious ceremony, which is really cool to watch, and I'm hoping to get a chance to see that again this year. And then with friends, this year we have been able to travel to a few cities with our program. So Natasha mentioned Selim Pasha was where we first arrived, and we spent 10 days together there, and then we went to Ankara and Cappadocia together, and then just next week actually, or in 2 weeks, we're going to be traveling to Antalya together. So these are really fun experiences and a really good way for us to see different cities in Turkey because they're all so beautiful. And now I'm going to pass it on to Noah, who I think has a video to show us.
Yeah, my contribution and my presentation is in video form here. I will also, I think, probably put it on my blog, noahringler.com, and supplement it with all the rest of the videos that I've taken over the time I'm here. Without further ado. A day in Turkey can start anywhere and at any time. My host father likes fishing, so sometimes we're up at 4 in the morning and off on the road. Being an exchange student living in someone else's family means you need to have the willingness and the flexibility to jump up and take whatever thought or opportunity that you are given. And some of the best things I've done, I haven't wanted to get out of bed for, but once you're there and you're viewing this town, here is the town of Eskifoça, and going out for some balık tutmak, or fishing. They don't really use rod fishing, it's just fishing off of the reel. You put 3 hooks on it. It's important to have as few or as little expectations as possible. I've found in pretty much every scenario, and this allows you to just come in and just kind of flow with it. I'm lucky enough to live in a family where I have the opportunity to ask and suggest activities that we can do together, and then we can plan some way in the next few weeks to have an opportunity to go somewhere and do something. That's why the host-family relationship is so important, is because if you build a relationship with people that will allow them to listen to you, and you listening to them, and being able to do your part in the family allows more opportunities and more openness that can lead to adventures like this. Here's the Bergamo ruins, which is another place that's really close to Izmir. It's impossible to live in Turkey and not experience the cultural wealth. Although this may not be a typical day for me, it's a typical weekend. I've tried to put emphasis on having a cultural experience like this every single weekend. Having the opportunity to gezmek, to sightsee, or to look at a manzara, a view. I have a feature-length video on this topic I'll provide a link to, but this was the first time I truly felt like I'd entered deep into the cultural experience of Turkey. It was at the Cumhuriyet Balosu, or the Republic Prom. This event was held to commemorate the anniversary of Atatürk's Declaration of the Republic and demonstrated some of the local and national dances. These dances are the traditional Efe warrior dances of the Ege Bölge, the Ege region. The blend of ethno-religious heritage and fierce nationalism define what Turkey is. I remember being there and having the feeling of these people's passion be absolutely palpable. Blending old and new, east and west, Islam and secularism, Turkey is a nation unique to the region and to the world. I've been Noah Ringler, NSLI-Y Scholar 2014-2015.
Wow, thank you so much, Noah, for that amazing video, and thanks to both you and Reagan. I think we can all agree that you've had a real wealth of amazing opportunities to delve into the rich culture there and experience it for yourselves, and you've really captured it just beautifully. So now that the NSLI students in Turkey have made their unique and meaningful experiences come alive for us all listening and given us a view into the Turkish language and culture from life at home, in school and at the dinner or breakfast table, to life on the bus and metro and in local communities, we'll now open it up to questions and discussion. So for those of you joining us in the audience, what do you want to know about experiencing everyday life in a foreign language and country? Please feel free to type any and all questions or comments you have for the students in the chat box, or if you'd like to use the mic to ask a question out loud, you can also raise your virtual hand at the top of the screen, just next to the little person waving there. There's an arrow, so you can just click on that and raise your hand as well. So feel free to go ahead. Okay, I see Xander has asked, is recreational running popular in Turkey? If any of the students would like to respond?
I think a lot of us run, actually. I think there's 2 or 3 of us that run, but it is not an extremely popular thing, but it absolutely has a following of people. There's a beautiful waterfront in Izmir with paths on it, and they also have a free public bike rental system where if you have a card and you pay and receive the card, you can rent bikes and take them from station to station all along the entire waterfront, which is an amazing way to commute back and forth. And I've been running too, and there's a large network of gyms that we also have the opportunity to do athletics in.
Thank you, Noah. Natasha, were you going to say something now?
Comments about turning on our video now to appear as a panel. But I can answer, did I need to bring a computer for school? No, none of the Turkish students bring computers for school, and there's also no Wi-Fi, at least at my school, at all. But we do have a computer lab at my school, and only the 9th graders take a course there.
Thanks, Natasha. I know that there was a question about from Nicholas about the general differences between summer and year programs, since especially he's an alumnus of the Bursa summer program like Reagan. So Reagan, would you like to answer?
Yeah, sure. I'll take that question. So I would say the biggest difference is going to be that during the year program you go to Turkish school, but other than that you're at Tomer the whole time. You're with a host family. The main difference is just it's for a way longer time, and you're at Turkish school. And the other thing is, I know during my summer program at Bursa, I'm not sure what year you went, but we had like a lot of program activities every week and everything. And now there are definitely a lot less program activities because they're more spread out. So that's a bit different, but it's still with the host family. You're still at Tomer. You're still learning Turkish. So there's not huge differences. And so if you're looking into the year program, I totally recommend it.
Great. I know Hidayat raised a hand, so I gave you the microphone privilege so you could speak your question. If you look at the top of your screen, you might see a microphone button. And to the NSLI Turkey students, if you all turn on your webcams now, you'll pop up as a panel. So if you want to have 6 little celebrity face boxes up at once, it'll all turn on. There you go. Great. Okay, and then we'll pass the question and the microphone to Hidayat for the question and answer.
Hello all. Merhaba arkadaşlarım. I'm also new student in Turkey, so I'm also learning Turkish language as every one of you saying that we are doing Turkish language in Izmir. So is there any place like the other students are going somewhere else? For example, I'm also a student in Eskişehir. It's a city in between Ankara and Istanbul. So all of your students just studying your Turkish language only in Izmir or also in some other cities? Thank you very much.
In our program, all students are placed in Izmir. There are 8 of us total, and we are all in the city together. But there are exchange students in many other cities in Turkey. Tömer, the language school we attend, has centers in many cities around Turkey. I'm not sure off the top of my head if they're in Eskişehir, but they are in Istanbul, Ankara, Samsun, Bursa, Trabzon, and several other places around Turkey. And Tömer is definitely a great place to study. But there are exchange students all over Turkey through AFS, through Rotary, through and through some other exchange programs, in addition to university students through Erasmus and other programs from Europe and the United States, and even places in Africa and Asia as well.
Thank you, Harry. I see that Johnny asked, what do Turkish teens generally do for fun?
I can start off by saying that I know Turkish teens love American pop culture, and everyone at my school watches all the latest American TV shows, and I personally don't. And so that was one thing, like when I first started school, it was, who's your favorite singer? What's your favorite TV show? And I was kind of like, I don't like keep up with any TV shows really. So they are really into American pop culture. That's one thing they do. But when we hang out with them, mostly I like go out to dinner, go out to breakfast. I went to the football match. That was fun. And so, I mean, it's kind of, they're not too different from American teens, I would say. Like, a lot of it is similar, just hanging out with friends by the seaside or watching TV shows.
Great, sounds like fun. Thanks, Reagan. And I see Grace has asked, do many Turkish people speak English?
I can talk about that one. So I think that more people speak Turkish definitely in the Turkish high schools where they're currently learning the language. Like I said earlier, I'm in the language program at my high school, so they learn a lot of English and speak a lot of English, but I've had the chance to talk with some people in the other programs at my school, and they really don't speak as much. But out in Izmir, most people, I would say, don't really speak English to any level of fluency. We don't speak English with any of them either, so it's not really a testing type of situation, but it's definitely less common than it is in many other international cities.
Great, and I see a question from Carol about what are your plans for the future, and do you think you'll be able to continue to use your Turkish after your year abroad?
I would say that all of us, or a lot of us, actually plan on going into like international affairs or kind of something along that line. I personally want to do international relations and hopefully work for either the State Department or an international business overseas, such as Nike or something. So I definitely plan on continuing in college and maybe minoring it and definitely continuing on with it. And I'm not sure about the other three here, but I think everyone definitely continues on keeping it up after spending a year and trying to get as fluent as we can.
Great, thanks, Reagan. I have a question for the panel as well. We've heard a lot about your day-to-day experiences in Turkey, school life, transportation, food, and whatnot. How has your day-to-day experience and interaction changed since you've been learning the language on program? Have you seen kind of an evolution or a growth and change in your experiences?
I think, and I've talked to my host family about this a little bit, we talked about how when we came here, our Turkish was not very developed. We didn't know a lot of the language, and communication was not easy. But since we've been learning more, it's now easier to communicate with our families and with our friends, and I think it's really strengthened our relationships and made it so that we can get to know each other better and really have a deeper relationship than asking about household items and talking about things like what we like and dislike and what we care about, and even things like politics and why we wanted to come to Turkey. And being able to do all these things in Turkish has definitely made a difference for us. And at the same time, going to like stores and restaurants and the bazaar and different places around town, it's just become easier because our language has developed that much that we can now even bargain at the bazaar or put our orders in a restaurant and say, I want this, but I want you to change it a little bit. I want my chicken dudum without onions today, or things like that. And I think it's really changed the way we're able to interact with our families and our classmates and the city itself. So it's been really great.
Thanks, Harry.
And if I could, I was just going to add on. For me, I take the bus to my Tomer course every day, and I actually transfer at one of the main bus stations in Izmir. So there are constantly buses coming and going. And one thing I experienced was I was constantly getting asked at the bus station, like, where is this bus? How can I get here? And for the first few weeks, I had no idea what they were saying, and it was really intimidating whenever someone talked to me. But after a few weeks, and definitely now, when people ask me, I can normally give them directions if I know the answer, but I can definitely understand them, and that's definitely been something that was like a big step, and I don't know, made me proud.
Thank you, Reagan. It seems like you've all come a very long way in just a few months you've been there, and really grown so much. So you should definitely be proud. We're definitely proud of you guys. And thank you all so much for your great questions, audience. And now we just wanted to share with you a few resources. So I'll turn it back over to Jen for that.
Thanks, Nicole. And you can continue typing questions in the chat box, but we are running short on time, so we do want to wrap it up for the audience and for our presenters. So before we go, we'd just like to share with you some of the following resources. If you're a student here joining us and are interested in learning more about the NSLI program and where you can go to apply, the first resource up there is the NSLI website that houses the application. If you're an educator joining us, of course, you can share this with your students as well. And that's www.nsli4youth.org. We're also very excited to share our new NSLI Interactive website, which showcases the language learning and cross-cultural experiences of NSLI students through their stories and their multimedia to connect with more people in the U.S., more students in the U.S., in classrooms as well. We'll continue to post announcements about virtual events such as this one, as well as continue to share stories from this group in Turkey on the NSLI Interactive website. So following this event, we'll post the recording here and send the link out to everyone. So you can view that recording after our event today.
Thank you, Jen. So we hope you've all enjoyed hearing from and connecting with our NSLI students in Turkey today. Thank you so much for joining us, and a huge thank you and round of virtual applause for our awesome and talented NSLI students in Turkey, Natasha, Reagan, Harry, and Noah. As we close out, we'll play a video produced by AFS, which is called A Close-Up Look at NSLI Turkey. And we thank you again. Teşekkür ederim, and goodbye. Güle güle.
Turkey was really new and exciting, and all the architecture was really old, and it felt like I was in a completely different world.
Being here and traveling through different cities, you just almost just feel how much history, how much culture there is around.
Definitely felt like an adventure. You come and you don't know anything, and the city looks so different from America, and you don't understand anything. You hear like there are hundreds of people on the street, you don't understand anything they're saying. But when you learn the language, you feel like, wow, I have friends, I have people that like me in a completely different side of the world, and it feels great.
Merhaba. Merhaba.
Merhaba.
Merhaba.
Türkiye.
Hoş geldiniz. Türkiye'ye hoş geldiniz. My name is Amber Garcia. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and I'm being hosted in Trabzon, Turkey.
My name is Armand Kelhoffen. I'm from Seattle, Washington, hosted in Trabzon, Turkey. Learning the language is like really easy when you're immersed because everyone's always trying to talk to you, trying to help you.
They give you a school that you're able to sit there and learn language, and so it makes it easier for you, so you don't go and blindly try and learn language on the street.
In the beginning, You learn the words, I don't understand. And then you go through the whole year saying, I don't understand, I don't understand, I don't understand you at all. And then 2.5 months ago, I was like, I haven't said that in so long. I feel really good about myself. When you learn the language, you're able to actually make strong bonds you didn't have before. So learning the language is the most important part. When I first got to my host family, it felt great. They were really welcoming and open. My mom really acted like my real mother, and my brother felt like we could go hang out anywhere, and it was great. My dad is like a crazy joker. He jokes all the time. He's just a really funny guy. It's like having two families. It's actually like having your real family and then having your real family across the world. When I first got here, I would only make friends with the kids that knew English. Even then, it was hard to connect in group situations. When your Turkish gets better, you find out that people actually have personalities, and they find out that you actually have a real personality, you're a real person. And then you start to get to know them really well and their interests, and you find out they like the same TV shows that I like. They watch American TV shows. They play the same things I play. You can make really good friends.
I've come to love Turkish as a language because it is like a puzzle. I can think of an English sentence in my head and just look at the paper. I sit there and I first put the root of the word, then I have to add the suffix. To me, just the sound of Turkish is so natural. It almost became a part of me just listening to it all day.
Learning language in high school was really never fun, but coming here, it's been like the most fun thing I've ever done and the best year of my life.
I could have watched movies about people in Turkey, that's where I could have learned how they dress, how the houses look, but it's so much better to learn things hands-on than it is to sit there behind a book or behind a television screen. I can go to anywhere in the world, I feel like, and I can learn the language because I was able to learn Turkish.
I'm in my senior year of high school, and I missed all of that. After like a couple months, I was like, no way, I'm leaving early. Like, my friends are here, and I only have a year with them. I found a whole new culture here that I didn't know there was, because I didn't know anything about Turkey. You have a whole stream of connections that I'm never going to forget. Like, I have friends that I'm going to visit for my whole life here. Now I just feel like I have a life here. I have a home here.
Artık Türkçe konuşabilirim.
Artık Türk konuşabilirim.
Artık ben Türkçeyi konuşabilirim.
So thank you so much to our amazing presenters again, and thank you all for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it and learned a lot.